Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second season of What About Grief? I'm Larry Home. Well, here we are, January 2024, and all the ways to look at things at the start of a new year. A clean slate, a new beginning, and my hope to help give you a fresh perspective on your grief. How did the holidays go for you? And what did you learn about yourself and your grief these past 2 months? As you reflect on them, what was the toughest part of the season? I'm sure in some ways we are all happy the holidays are over. Secretly, I am. Make sure to email me at whataboutgriefpod@gmail.com and share your comments on how you survive the holidays. I'd like to review them on a future podcast with all of you. If you are an NFL fan, January is an exciting time. The regular season is winding up. The playoffs are about to start. Plus, let's face it, everyone wants to know where Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are going for dinner after the game. And our guest this month is a man who knows a lot about the NFL playoffs, having played in a total of 17 postseason games during his 11-year career as the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. Jim Kelly's career is filled with numerous stats and records, too long to list, but what might be the highlight of his career came in August 2002 when he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the first year he was eligible. But football isn't the only thing that defines Jim. He is a husband, father, friend, businessman, and a man of faith. And that faith has been tested. In August 2005, Jim Kelly experienced a loss unlike any other. His 8-year-old son, Hunter, passed away from complications due to Krabbe disease, a terminal illness that meant for all of his short, young life, Hunter couldn't speak, walk, swallow, or move voluntarily without painful suffering. To honor his son, Jim and his family established the Hunter's Hope Foundation in 1997, a nonprofit organization committed to giving hope through education, awareness, research, and family care for children struggling with this disease. And then in 2013, Jim was diagnosed with a form of cancer in his jaw and underwent surgery, chemo, and radiation treatments. The cancer reappeared in 2014, as well as in 2018, and again most recently in 2021. But thankfully, Jim now is cancer-free. With all of that as a backdrop, Jim Kelly, welcome and thank you for taking the time to share your story with me and our listeners.
Hey, how you doing, guys? Hey, Larry. As you were going through all that early on, talking about Hunter, I started reminiscing about the time that he was here, and then, of course, getting a little choked up behind it. But bottom line is he made me the man I am today, and going through all the stuff that I've been through in my life, I don't complain anymore because. As I travel the country speaking, I meet people that have, they're so much worse off than I am. So I just do what I got to do. I try to make sure that when I leave that talk that I'm giving, that they leave with an attitude that they're going to go out and make somebody else's day better by, their presence and what they say, those hugs and kisses, and especially the smiles that they put on their faces. So, I'm here for a reason. That's why the good Lord put me here. That's why I've been through all that, is to be able to make a difference.
What a great perspective. Thank you. Kind of describe Hunter for us. What are some of your strongest memories of him?
Well, number one, he was born on my birthday, Valentine's Day, and I remember that day. It's a long story, but I'm going to keep it short, that my wife, who said that she was not going to find, well, we both did, said we were not going to find out the sex of the child. And unfortunately, a few weeks before he was born, my wife found out at a doctor's appointment with, her lady doctor. And they said, "Where's Jim?" And that's the only meeting I could go to. And she said, "Oh, he couldn't make it today." And of course, she said, "Would you like to know the sex of the child?" And she goes, "Yeah." So she already knew when, the water broke and everything. We were going to the hospital and I'm thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great if it was a boy? And she already knew. And it was my birthday. I mean, imagine having a son born on your birthday, which for me was Valentine's Day. So I was pumped. And then, of course, when the baby came out and it was a boy, I did dancing around the room. And I was holding my son. I cut the umbilical cord. But, those things that I saw, leading up to his diagnosis was tough. I mean, he was crying 22, 23 hours a day. We knew something was wrong. We did everything we could. But, as time went on, we started treating him like he was living. And he was normal. We would put him on the back of ponies. He would be riding on the horses, and we'd put him on back snowmobiles. And of course, what I like to do is watch videos of VHSs. Back in my day, it was VHSs, and we watched the Bills, winning. And that was back when Hunter was born. That was back when the Bills were not really good. So we had to pull out some of them old videos and watch Daddy play and paint them up, because I love the outdoors. I love to hunt and fish and all that. And we'd be painted up, and I'd pretend like, we're going hunting or fishing, and we'd be watching, the outdoor channel and things like that. And just, having a time in my life with him, even though he could not talk. He never walked, talked, smiled. But you know what? The bottom line is, he, as I, stated at the beginning, he's what made me who I am today. The toughness that people talk about when I played, and I looked, the toughness I got was from my son, watching all the things he went through. And it was tough. It was really tough, but especially for my wife. So, but I'm here now, and I'm still here. God still has a purpose for my life.
So early on, after Hunter passed away at only 8 years old, when and how did grief hit you, and how did you deal with it?
Well, me and my wife dealt with it totally different. My wife, after my son was born, seeked the Lord. And of course I ran. I was mad. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I was wondering why God would put me through so much. I mean, like my senior year in college, I blew my shoulder out. They told me I never played football game. And then, playing for the Buffalo Bills and going to 4 Super Bowls and not winning. And just the ups and downs of my life and everything that, I was going through. And then going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which I was blessed because my son was able to be there with me that day. I was inducted. And then just a short period after that, all the things that he was going through, it was tough. And I continued to fight with the Lord, wondering why God would ever do this to me. But my wife, she continued to seek God, and that was not good for our relationship, our marriage. We knew the only thing that was holding our marriage together was our son. And the day that he did pass, was the day that both of us thought that divorce was right around the corner. But I decided a short time after that I know I needed to do something. I needed to change my life. And that's what I did. I said, I need you, God. I need you in my life. I need to change mine. I need to change all the things that I'm doing. And I did. And thank God I did, because I understand why I was getting put through all those.
And how did you balance grieving Hunter, but then at the same time try and provide a happy life for your 2 daughters?
Oh, you know what? It was tough, but I'm very good at putting negativity to the side. I mean, maybe that's because being a quarterback, you throw an interception, you got to forget about, learn from it. When you lose, you got to, learn from it. You put it to the side. And I always was able to do that. I always try to focus my mind on positive stuff and not negative stuff. I don't try to let it wear me down. And I always kept busy. And that's probably why I ran the no-huddle offense. I was fast. I kept on moving. And I was able to do it. But, having my 2 daughters now in my life is such a blessing. I mean, my oldest daughter is married now. She's been married for 5 years. No grandchildren yet. Unfortunately, she's going through some tough times with Lyme disease, and she caught probably hunting with me by a tick.
Oh, my.
But, and then my youngest daughter is a senior. She's a first year grad school at Liberty University. So I'm very blessed. I have a beautiful wife, 2 great daughters, and a son-in-law. So it was hard at the beginning to see all the things they were going through, but they were young when Hunter was here. So it didn't affect them as much as it does now when they look back and saw what all the things that Hunter had to go through.
And, everyone grieves differently. I know I do when my wife passed away, and I'm sure obviously you and your wife do in regards to Hunter. But is there any advice you would make sure to share with other parents who are struggling after the loss of losing a child? You're listening to the What About Grief podcast. We will get back to my discussion with Jim Kelly in a moment, but I wanted to remind you that you can write to us at the show with your thoughts, ideas, or description of your own grief journey. We appreciate hearing from you, and we like being connected with our listeners. So please reach out to us via email at whataboutgriefpod@gmail.com. Also, if you like the podcast and find it helpful, please go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating, hit the subscribe button, and leave a review. All of this helps us grow the podcast. And share the link with those you know who are experiencing their own grief. The goal of the podcast is to help those, like us, navigate the confusing emotion that is grief. Is there any advice you would make sure to share with other parents who are struggling after the loss of losing a child?
Well, number one, it's not easy. Number two is the way that I and my wife got through it was the grace of God, knowing that she's the only one that knows all of our days, and whatever you can do to make your days each and every day better. Think about what he or she has done to your life, even though pretty much a lot of them are not very good, but never give up on dreams, never give up on being a difference maker for somebody else. And at least I know through my travels, talking to other people, a lot of other people are doing the same thing. They're trying to make good of it. Even though, they lost that loved one, they know God has a purpose for all of our lives. And if you have your faith, that's what's going to get you through, because I know that's what got me through it.
You and your family created the Hunter's Hope Foundation to address the acute need for information and research with respect to Krabbe disease, which took Hunter's life, as well as to strive and support and encourage those afflicted and their families as they struggle to adjust and cope with the demands of this illness. How fulfilling has that been for you and your wife and really your whole family to create this foundation?
Well, it's great, but it's frustrating because you wish that people out there that make the decisions on what they're going to test for and all that were better in tune to what was going on. I mean, we tried to make sure that every state in this country tests for the maximum amount of treatable diseases. And I don't know whether you know this or not, Larry, but every state in this country is different on how many diseases they test for.
Yep.
And we want every state to test for the maximum amount, because there's kids out there are dying that all they had to do was, if they would have known at birth what was wrong, they would have been able to put them on another diet, been able to give them something so they didn't have to suffer. Mm-hmm. And some of them a complete cure. But we cannot get our government to understand that we need every state testing for the maximum amount of treatable diseases. And we're letting this all go by. You know what? I'm not going to stop until every state in this country tests for the maximum amount of treatable diseases, and give these kids a chance to dream like I was able to do as a little boy. And right now, our government, they just don't get it. And like I said, I'm not stopping.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw that your wife had gone and presented it in front of those in Washington pretty recently, correct?
Yes, within the last year, and we'll be hopefully going back in within the next year or two, and hopefully getting some things changed.
Good. In my December,
and just really quick, it's just not what my son went through. It's a leukodystrophy, which thousands and thousands of babies are born in this country with this, and it affects everybody. This is not just Buffalo, New York. This is every state in the United States and Canada and across the country. There's so many kids that are dying now. If they just are able to get tested at birth, all we have to do is take that blood spot, send it off to a lab, and be tested. It's not that hard.
I listened to your Hall of Fame speech, and you mentioned that Hunter was the toughest person you had ever met, that he was your hero. And you were able to look out and see him sitting there with the rest of your family in that crowd. And I'm wondering, what were those emotions like when you were able to look at him at that, it's such an important moment in your professional NFL career, but to see him out there with you?
Well, I remember when I was in New Orleans, when that phone call came that I was picked on the first ballot to go into the Hall of Fame. I had me, my five brothers, my dad, and my high school football coach with me, and celebrating, and just it was so much fun. And knowing that I prayed every night that if it was God's will, that my son would be there the day that I was inducted. And when August came around, my son was there. And it was a hard speech to give when he was out there sitting and being in the situation he was. But I was granted that blessing. I thank God for that opportunity to have my son there. And it was amazing. It was one of the best feelings of my life.
Is there something you do or your family does that you, in how you choose to remember Hunter specifically on significant dates, whether it's his birthday or the day of his passing? How do you remember him on those dates?
Well, we do. We go to the cemetery, which is very close to where we're at. It's in my wife's hometown. We go there. We celebrate on Valentine's Day. We do a Hunter's Day of Hope for Children here in Buffalo. Also, I have a outdoor lodge in upstate New York that's named after my son. And but there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about Hunter. And I miss him. I miss him every day. And it's hard. It still is. But you know what? I try to think of the positives and what he's doing now, and knowing, and this is probably one of the biggest moments too, is the day that I go, at least I know where I'm going. I'm going to be seeing my son. And I'm not quite ready yet, God. Give me some time. I got a lot more to do, but I can't wait for that day because I know who I'm going to see, and that's my son, Hunter James Kelly.
Well, that's pretty neat. Jim, thank you for your time today. Your life has been full of highs and lows, both on and off the football field. But you have made something so tough, the loss of your son, Hunter, into something that is helping and educating other families. Thank you for opening up and sharing your story. And I truly believe sharing in the hope of helping others is a way to honor our loved ones. So thank you for this time.
Larry, I appreciate it. I thank you very much. And my last thing that I could say is, you know what? You don't have to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. You can be a truck driver, a school teacher, an MC, whatever the case may be, to be a difference maker, because there's so many people out there that can change other people's lives by a smile, a hug, and I love you. And so I just urge everybody out there, be a difference maker. And I came up with this saying, make a difference today for someone who's fighting there tomorrow. So may the good Lord continue to bless each and every one of you. Thank you for having me on, Larry. You take care, and God bless.
Thanks, Jim. I really do appreciate you taking time and coming on the podcast today and sharing your story with us. And if you listeners would like to be a difference maker, check out huntershope.org to find out more about what this awesome foundation is doing. I begin my mornings by reading a daily meditation from a book a close friend shared with me after Sarah, my wife, passed away. It is called Healing After Loss, and the author is Martha W. Hickman, and I love this book. It gets me thinking about grief in a different perspective, and in some ways, it is always very relatable to me. Now, I'm no Oprah, and I don't have a book club, but if I did, I would put this book on my list. This specific meditation is from the December 11th reading. How many times have we lain awake at night, our thoughts weighed with stress, our brains worrying over this or that problem, and all of it compounded by our frustration at not being able to do what we should be doing, which is to sleep. And then in the morning, though we may be tired, things usually do look better. To be in profound grief is a much more basic affliction than a little nocturnal restlessness. But it does seem as though grief sits more heavily on our hearts when all is still and dark. A good time to cry. Sometimes an unavoidable time to cry. Then the morning comes, and even though the sadness persists into daylight, Perhaps it moderates a bit with the sight of sunshine, the smell of coffee, some familiar routines to attend to. Not to mention the symbolic overtones of night and morning, that, grim though our sadness is, surely there are brighter days. I will welcome the sunshine into my life, for warmth, for illumination, and as a bearer of hope. And then it closes with a verse from Psalm 30. Weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes in the morning. I very much related to this one due to what has recently happened to me and my family with the sudden loss of my mom back in November. I think between her loss and then the new look, feel, and adjustment of the holidays for my family, you sometimes do wonder, will the sun come out again? But I'm here to tell you that it does. I do look forward to the mornings and what the new day will spring on me. I realize grief is always lingering and will come ambush me and remind me of my loss when I least expect it. But I know through confidence, strength, and hope, I will look forward to brighter days. Time to get back up again. Wouldn't our loved ones want that from us? My thanks to Jim Kelly. What About Grief is available monthly on all major podcast listening platforms. Please follow the podcast as well as rate and review the show on Apple Podcast. The executive producer of What About Grief is Marcia Anderson. Logo artwork was designed by TED Studios. This episode was recorded at BAM Studios in Chicago. And lastly, feel free to email us at whataboutgriefpod@gmail.com.